Hey guys, and welcome to 11th grade English. So I sent you guys to read part 1 of 10,000 Saints. It's a novel by Eleanor Henderson. And so, to start off, how have you guys been? You guys all good? All good? Good? Okay. So, to start off, because the topics for today are a little bit... I'm trying to find a job right now, actually.
Do you have chalk?
The chalk is.
Oh,
Yeah, it's right there.
Thank you.
I can never find the chalk in here.
It kind of blends in.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for today's class, it's a little bit of a heavier topic with the contents of the book, and so kind of just want to ease into it. But it's some important topics. I don't want you guys to disregard this. But so to start for today, I just kind of want to when the word addiction comes up, right? And also, sorry for my bad handwriting. It's not how to write very well, but when I write down addiction, could you guys give me a few ideas of what comes up first?
Gambling.
Gambling.
Yeah.
Wisconsin too. Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Yep. Alcohol. Okay. Okay. That will come up later. Okay. Anyone else? Okay.
Social media addiction.
Oh, that's a modern one. Okay, that's good. This book is also a little modern, so that's relevant. Okay, how about you?
Drugs.
Drugs in general, that's true. Okay, now when the public thinks about addiction, just give me 1 or 2 things. What do you guys think that when we hear addiction in the news was the first thing that we think about? How does the media how does the media portray addiction?
It's bad.
It's bad.
It's very, very bad.
It's bad. Anyone else? Just seem 1 or 2 more. Yep.
I would say not just it's bad, but that person is bad.
Thank you. That you hit the nail right on the head. The person in general. Anyone else? Oh.
Guess I'd say
There's no wrong answers, by the way.
that they have zero control over their actions.
Okay, that's also very good.
Thank you.
All of y'all who've spoken up so far, very good answers. But yeah, zero self-control. Okay, yeah, that's a good way to kind of get into this. I'm gonna take this chair because we're gonna be reading a little bit later. But so, yeah, when we think about addiction, we typically kind of think about this idea that a person on their own accord ends up getting hooked onto something and it's just their fault. They're unchangeable, they're unfixable, and they're just generally a bad person. And so it sets a really bad precedent, but there's a certain prejudice that doesn't really help us either. And in this book, 10,000 Saints by Eleanor Henderson, that I hope you guys read part 1 for. So it's set in the 1980s, and it's originally set in Vermont. The piece I will be reading to you guys today is in Vermont, but due to what happens, the kid, his name is Jude, the main protagonist, there's other kids, but the main protagonist is Jude. He ends up leaving his house, he ends up escaping, and he ends up finding a group of kids who are much like him. And so they end up in New York in the middle of the AIDS epidemic and the punk scene. And yeah, I'll read you guys an excerpt from the book for right now. And also when I hand you guys this, feel free to kind of make some annotations and all that while you read. And yeah.
You'll have to add a few more things.
Oh, so I'll do my rounds. There you go. I got the energy. Alright, there you go. And there you go.
Thank you.
And there is 1 more. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, this passage begins on page 60 of Well, chapter 3, but page 60 of the book. So just get to it. Okay. Jude put his hands behind his head, gathering his shoulders into the depths of his sleeping bag, which smells like gasoline and his mother. She used to take it camping at Campbell's Hump with Jude's father, who now has a piece of pot caught in his beard like a crumb. Jude asks if he can try some, but his father shakes his head. You let me try the eggnog with rum in it. Bear in mind that right now Jude is about 9-10 years old, okay? Reefer, which at the time was sort of like lingo for pot, like marijuana. Reefer's for grown-ups, but some grown-ups are too grown up for it. Some grown-ups think it's unfashionable now. His father takes a smooth hit. I'm afraid I'm not needed here anymore, champ. When Jude says nothing, his father asks, you know why people smoke reefer? It's a comfort, champ. It restores you, like sleep. It makes you like a baby again, a sleeping baby. You know what I mean? And note that how when he says that people feel like they're too grown up for pot, this implies that people are now taking stronger drugs. People are creating stronger drugs in this time period, the 1980s. Okay. No, you won't let me try it. You're already a baby. You don't need to become one again. When you're older, you'll know. I'm not a baby. I'm 9 today. His father rocks slowly in his chair. You're right. You're not a baby anymore. Do you know what Mom and Mr. Donahoe were talking about outside? He stops rocking. His gray eyes, which have been rolling around the greenhouse with a liquid dreaminess, fall on Jude's face, as though he's just spotted him there, lying at his feet. He looks almost pleased. As a matter of fact, I believe they were talking about moi. How come? A sheet of snow tumbles off the warming roof. I'm going to tell you something, champ, because I need another man's opinion. Okay? Okay. Miss Donahoe, she's pregnant. You know, she's gonna have a baby. Jude absorbs this information. As cold as it is outside, he's hot in his sleeping bag, his forehead sweating under the lights. Then, why were they talking about you? Well, because I'm the one who made her pregnant. You know how that happens and everything. Jude nods slowly. He knows more or less. When he asked his mother where babies came from, she drew him a diagram in colored pencils. And what do you think about that? His mom pissed. Yeah, she is. She's very pissed and doesn't want to be married to me anymore. She'll probably be even more pissed that I told you all this, but you should know the truth. You're a big guy. You can handle it, right? Jude is lying, perfectly still, even though he wants to crawl into his father's lap and touch the red spot on his cheek. He wonders if it was Mr. Donahoe who hit him, or Jude's mom. Know how he's calling him a big guy now after just calling him a baby for trying to smoke some pot earlier. But what happened to the baby? We find ourselves in a strange position. Do we keep the baby? What happens to the baby? Where will it go? Will it mean it'll be Mr. and Mrs. Donahoe's? It's a possibility. But where will the baby go if they don't? His father takes a quick hit of his pipe, then puts it down on the workbench beside him. Reluctantly, he exhales the smoke. Then outside, something occurs to Jude. The baby's growing. The baby's going to be my brother or sister, isn't it? He was just a baby when Prudence was born. Prudence is his little sister. She's like 2 or 3 years older than him. His eyes are glassy and wet, just like they are when he tells scary stories about Vietnam, stories he's stolen from his friends who were there. Jude remembers one about an arm in a tree waving. Focus on the stealing aspect because that's a big part of his dad's character. Here's the thing. Jude's father rubs his beard. There's lots of things that can happen to babies. Sometimes babies aren't born at all. Sometimes when they do get born, they get raised by their parents. And sometimes they get raised by other people. For example, what's the name of that one program you and your sister watched? The one with the black kids. Good Times? Jude is so glad to have a question he can answer. He lets out a breath. No, the one with the two boys and the white father. Oh, different strokes. Different strokes. So, for example, these kids are being raised by someone other than their real parents. They're adopted, right? Jude nods. So, as a matter of fact, we planned to wait, your mother and I, to tell you, but your mother would wait forever if she could, and I don't have that long jam. I think you're old enough to know. He leans forward on his elbow so Jude can see up into the dark spheres of his nostrils, and tells Jude he's adopted too. Jude doesn't make a sound. He presses the sleeping bag over his nose, breathing in his mother. He smells Cracker Jack's midnight in the Donahoe's driveway. For a moment he thinks, Mr. Donahoe's my dad. But that doesn't make any sense, but nothing else makes any sense either. Where did he get this red hair? Asked a friend of his mother's once, pawing through it as though she'd never seen red hair before. Jude's father places a palm on top of Jude's head. His touch, neither hot nor cold, shouldn't feel like anything, but it does. His dad isn't his dad, he's just a man. He tells Jude that his real mother, was just a teenager, and that he was adopted from a hospital in New York when he was 10 days old. You were as little as a rabbit. You could fit right here. He puts a finger on his thigh and one on his knee. It's quite common, really. Aristotle was adopted. Lee Majors was adopted. Lots of people are. You wouldn't even know it. Jude squints up into the bright lights. He thinks of Miss Donahoe's belly button and the little lump of a person inside her. Inside his sleeping bag, he dips his finger into the warm hollow of his own navel. Later, at a less finite moment, he'll come to imagine his 9 months in utero, and not only curiosity but nostalgia. He'll understand what his father meant about marijuana. It's deep, peaceful sleep. A small, fragile gift of forgetting. He wants to forget. He'll imagine that being high is something like being unborn, alive but not present. And when he's savoring a mouthful of smoke, he'll sometimes find himself swimming toward that drowsy, padded place, brainless, blinded, curled in the pink womb of a stranger. Then the room goes black. The lamps blink once, then are gone. When Jude's eyes adjust, they find the soft light in the doorway. 9 candles that illuminate his mother's stunned face. She is wearing her coat over her dress and her unlaced snow boots, which have tripped over the extension cord. The cake looks homemade. In the house, the party is counting backwards to 1. Then it bursts into a roar. How could you tell him? How could you tell him? Jude looks at his father sideways. He's not sure which part he's talking about. He wishes he could unknow all of it. Just tilt his head and shake it out of his ear like bathwater. Now, we're kind of running a little bit late. I'm pretty sure the bell is about to ring. And so, basically, just so that you all know, when we talk about addiction, it's not just, I don't want you all to consider it whenever like the AA person comes into the room to kind of give his little spiel or anything like that. Because addiction doesn't really discriminate. When you look at the prisons, there's a lot of people who look like me, but there's a lot of people who look like anyone else. Because it can happen to anyone else. Jude, in this book, he's a white boy. Once he's older, he's a white male. That's not really what you hear about in the news. And when we hear about it in the news, we think about villains, we think about criminals, but they're just, a lot of them are just typical people who experience levels of trauma and their circumstances sort of drive them towards this. And so, I just hope that when you guys leave this classroom today, you guys can differentiate between what is a criminal and what is a person who is a result of their circumstances, traumas, and situations. And for your homework, kind of put it on a lighter note, because that was a deep class. On a lighter note, could you guys read like part 2 of the book? And then, the book is super interesting. Honestly, out of all the books I've read this year, it's probably like top 10. But, yeah. Hopefully you guys found this all important or entertaining, at least a little bit. But yeah, okay, have a good weekend.